Welcome to a pivotal moment in the world of broadcast as we proudly present the Men's Mental Health Show featuring the renowned Larry Mabry in collaboration with the Maassen Group. This essential exploration of men's mental health wouldn't be possible without the invaluable support of Rainier Avenue Radio World. Now, let's dive into this crucial conversation with Larry Mabry and the Maassen Group. Your mental well-being matters. Here's Larry Mabry.
What's up? It's good to hear from everyone. This is Larry Mabry chiming in on this beautiful May 20th, 2024. Just kind of checking in. Wanted to send a shout out to our friends here at Rainier Avenue for allowing the support to allow this show to go on. Today's show I wanted to talk about boundaries. Boundaries. I think we talked about this before. Been meeting with a couple clients, and I noticed for me that's something that's kind of really been kind of like coming to the head. Boundaries, and there's so many things that we deal with boundaries. We have spiritual boundaries, financial boundaries, personal growth boundaries, emotional boundaries, sexual boundaries, mental health, financial boundaries, physical, quite a few things that we could talk about. And for those individuals that do not know, May is Mental Health Month. So wanted to kind of talk about how can we address these boundaries, right? Typically, this time of year, depending on your job, sometimes there's a lot of stress going on. If you are working in certain types of careers, as we get closer to the summer, we have certain types of demands and boundaries get tested, in the family, in the work, professionally, emotionally, those types of things. And so I wanted to kind of talk about those, and I like to look at boundaries kind of like how we look at bank account. So what happens if you have a lot of deposits, a lot of large deposits in your bank account? Then you basically would end up with a lot of money, right? A lot of resources, a lot of things that you could use to buy products, to take care of bills, things of that nature. You would run a surplus. However, if you have a situation where your bank account is being debited quite a bit, right, where they're taking a lot of money out of your account, what will happen?
Oops.
Yes, you would have a situation where people would basically end up having some complaints. The bank would hit you up with NSF fees, non-sufficient funds, end up with different types of things that you would have to pay out because you've been overdrawn. And so I want to kind of talk about that because I want us to kind of look at boundaries from a different perspective, right? So if you look at your emotional boundaries, your mental state in terms of balancing your boundaries, what types of relationships are you having with people that are giving you deposits, right? Kind of like if you're out here putting in work every day, you have a job every 2 weeks or every week or every day, depending on your job, you're getting resources or finances. What would happen if you make those deposits and when you go at the end of the month, the bills basically they supersede the actual deposits, and then you be at a deficit, right? So emotionally, ask yourself, all the individuals that you interact with, are they depositing into you, right? Let me give you an example. So let's say you wake up in the morning, if you're married, you say hello to your wife. She's like, hey, how are you? Gives you a beautiful smile, shows you some love, wants you to have a really good day. That will be a positive type of deposit into your emotional well-being, into your mental state, right? And as you're going throughout your day, think about how many people are actively adding value or deposits into your emotional well-being. And I want to talk about that because it's important for us to have boundaries. If you notice that individuals are not giving you positive deposits emotionally, we'll just talk about that for a moment. Then at some point you have to set the line in the sand with that person and cut them off or minimize the interaction with that individual, right? Let me give you an example. let's say you have a job, and let's say you working 50 hours, right? You putting in work, but it's a salary. So, and you already know with a salary, they can only cap you out at a certain time. You got two choices. You can say, you know what? I'm only going to work my 37 and a half or 40 hours, right? Because I need to take that time, that extra 10 hours, and invest it in maybe working out, spending some time with my family, maybe me working on my mental. It could be me working on an album or some other interest that I have, right? And at some point you may feel guilty, like, man, you know what? I'm putting in this work and I need to give them more. But at the very most, what's going to happen is if you are actually giving more than what's desired, then basically the question is, are you respecting yourself? And I want you to think about that for a second. And this is a real serious question, because for me as a business owner, it's like I got to put a lot of time in, and we have to think about that. Like sometimes we got to take a step back and take care of ourselves in a different way and put in those boundaries, right? Very important, because if you don't tell people kind of how to deal with you, then they're going to kind of deal with you however they want to deal with you, right? And so it's important to make sure you put in those boundaries. And so I want to give an example. I recall I had a client that we would work really well together, and we just hit it off real well, and I was helping them work through some things, and I realized that, every single time, we would go a little bit over, and I wouldn't really charge them or anything like that. But I realized that as I kept doing that, it kind of created a precedent, where that individual thought, we can go longer and longer and longer. And I had to like take a step back and say, you know what? I can't blame that individual. I got to actually blame myself. And so am I mad? No, I'm not mad, because sometimes, you have to kind of go a little bit over and beyond in certain situations. But I have to ask myself, am I honoring my own boundaries? And so I want to ask you, are you honoring your boundaries? Right? Are you allowing people to do certain things that that it's not really the right thing to do? I've had people ask me to do certain favors, and I've taken care of some things with some people and done some different things and some favors with people. But sometimes I realize that for myself, that if you don't create certain boundaries or have certain conversations with people, then some people think that, they can just push it to the limit, or there becomes a situation where people just are really thinking that they can just do whatever because you didn't really communicate what's your expectation or what you need for yourself. And sometimes you don't realize it until you're like already knee deep in it, right? And I want to say, as men, that's a challenge, because as we go out here in the wilderness, in the world, we're battling, doing what we need to do on an everyday basis. When is it that people just say, hey, you know what? I appreciate what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? We don't really get that very often. So I want to take this time to say, hey, if you're listening, I appreciate you guys listening. I see you. I appreciate you. I know what you're putting in. Keep doing you. I want to say salute to you, because I know every day, sometimes you got to dig deep, because maybe you hitting the gym to get your body right, but also, you putting in work every day. I say, I see you. And unfortunately, the way our society is, a lot of females, a lot of our culture, they don't really see us as men. They pretty much want us to already have achieved a certain level of success, not realizing that it may take 15 years to accomplish a certain level of consistency. And then when people see us on that 15th year, they're like, oh yeah, you the man. But they don't realize, back in the day when you was out there trying to put in work and no one really showed you love, and you was out there early, out there late, striving, pushing, nobody saw you, right? But I want to say, I see you and I appreciate you, because I know what you're going through, right? And you have to have that discipline. You have to have those boundaries put in place. You have to kind of separate yourself from certain people, because you have a goal in mind and it's something that you desire, right? And I get it. I get it, because for those individuals who are out here putting in work, it's almost like we have to kind of separate ourselves from certain people, right? And because we know that we're getting to our goal, it's actually for our best interest, and those individuals that we connect with will always benefit us. But sometimes it's lonely, right? Sometimes it's lonely, because when we're striving and we're trying to accomplish certain things, you know, we look at society, we look at social media, and it's like instantaneous. But let's keep it 100. There's nothing out here that's instantaneous, right? If you guys are listening, please tell me one thing that you've noticed that come to you instantaneously, right? There's nothing that comes to you instantaneously. Everything takes work, right? But unfortunately, in social media, we don't really see that. We look at a 30-second clip, or we see a particular video. We don't realize the man hours that went behind it. And so I want to say that it's important to make sure that you stick to what you're working on. You take care of your boundaries, and make sure you take care of your mental health, right? What does that look like? Well, what are you doing that you enjoy doing for you, right? Is it playing badminton? Is it out here hooping? Is it out here going for a walk in these beautiful mountains? Find something that you enjoy doing that gives you joy, right? And for those individuals listening, reach out to me. Let me know. Tell me some things that bring you joy, right? Reach out to us on Instagram or Facebook. What are some things that bring you joy? Go ahead and reach out to us right now and let us know. I would love to talk to you about that. Some things that bring you joy. One thing that I like that brings me joy is when I kind of go on some of these hikes out here. Man, I got a lot of love for Washington. There's a lot of cool things out here. And I feel like you don't really experience it until you're out here walking. When you're driving, yeah, it's beautiful views, but it's nothing like being one with nature. And what I like about nature is nature's very real, right? Nature does not BS you. It's going to be what it is. But also, another thing I appreciate about nature is it allows you to be in the moment, right? So let's go back to boundaries. What about professional boundaries? Sometimes the boss may ask you to do a certain task, and you had already committed to someone else in the family. What do you do in that situation, right? Sometimes you have to call in and say, hey, you know what, I can't do that today. And what happens when you feel bad? Who is the individual that's feeling bad? I like to say it's the inner child. Let's talk about that a little bit. Sometimes we have these thoughts, these emotions, these viewpoints that we have going through our mind, our spirit, and our soul. And because we feel a certain kind of way, we unfortunately put ourselves in situations that's not really beneficial in the long run. And how do you know this? Well, if you do something to help somebody, and after a while, you're feeling like they're using you, or you feeling like they're getting away with certain things, it's just not cool, or you feeling some kind of way about yourself, then that will probably be an indication that you probably need to look at your boundaries, right? And we all have these challenges. Sometimes it comes from our family, right? Sometimes it may come from an aspect of ourselves that we haven't really dealt with. It may come from our subconscious, right? And we have to deal with these situations in order to be better men, so that we can be better people, and so that we can make better, healthier choices for ourselves, right? And it's weird because I feel like as a man, we have so much in terms of expectations that we have to provide for our families. We have to protect. And sometimes I feel like our ego kind of gets in the way. And, how are we able to shed a tear and just be okay with that, right? Because depending on the society you come from, that might not be something that's really well received, right? Your blackness, your manhood, are you competent enough? Are you able to, do what you need to do? And we know this, but sometimes, our pride can kind of get in our way and give us the wrong perspective, right? So it's important for us to make sure we carve those boundaries out, make sure we stick to them. And I know personally, as I've been really being a little bit more honorable with my boundaries, a couple things happen. Well, one, I don't really have a lot of people around me that's about BS, right? Because when you have definite boundaries and people know that, those individuals that challenge it, they will basically learn that, oh, okay, I guess that person doesn't play. And they will honor it or just not be a part of your life. That's the first thing. The second thing is it allows you to kind of focus more on what's important. I think as we go out here in society, we're so inundated with so many things that throw us off, right? We get focused with this TikTok thing, this Facebook thing, right? This Twitter thing, this Diddy thing. There's so many things going on out here that we kind of get off kilter as far as what's really important for us. What are we building for us? What's your goal? What's your dream? What's your vision? And when we start to have those boundaries, then we can really get back to us, right? Our mental, our spiritual, our emotional, and really build. And those individuals that are for you, what you'll find is they'll stick with you, or you will attract other individuals that's going to support you, right? But unfortunately, sometimes we are our own biggest enemy. You may say, really? Yeah, we could be our own biggest enemy. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because sometimes it may be certain things in our subconscious that's keeping us from being successful, right? We may be fearful of the unknown, or we may be what I like to call stinking thinking. And that basically is we have a certain thought process that we never really get out of, that cognitive distortion I talked about way in the past. And if we constantly perpetuate those thoughts, we can't grow, right? Also, too, what are we doing that's challenging ourselves to grow? If we constantly do the same thing over and over again, what happens? We get the same results. And so it's important to make sure that those things that we know aren't working, and we challenge those things so that we can become better people. And I talked about the Star Wars or the Jedi Council, those 5 or 6 people that are around you, what are they doing to help you grow? Right? Are you the top person where you are? If you are, then I would definitely say find some more people around you. And why is that? Well, the ego is going to get challenged, but what's going to happen is it's going to force you to create what I call different types of thought patterns, because you got to think things differently because you're in a different environment. I would say that's the biggest thing I learned since I moved here to Washington. West Coast, man, big difference from the Midwest. Big difference. First of all, I would say here a lot of people are more passive aggressive compared to the D, where people are a little bit more in your face. But what I also notice here too, which is very interesting, is because there's so many different innuendos and different cultures here. Like things can be read into things so many different ways, which allows you to kind of see other perspectives that you wouldn't be privy to, which is kind of cool. And I appreciate that here because it allows you to grow. Now, when I first came here, it's a little bit of a challenge because I felt like people weren't very forthright. However, when I kind of sat back and kind of observed, I realized, well, actually, there's some things that I can kind of relax with to be a little bit more open-minded, which allowed me to delineate what my boundaries were, which is helpful, right? And so there's always 2 ways to look at a situation, right? But anyway, another boundary I would like to talk about too is spiritual boundaries. What are you doing to help yourself spiritually, right? If you're noticing that certain things you're watching, certain things that people are talking about, right? Are you delineating and letting people know, you know what? I don't stand for that, or I'm not really going to support that. Are your actions matching up what you're saying? That's important, right? Because that's going to allow you to grow exponentially. And for those listeners listening, I want to kind of express a secret. People don't realize, but a lot of things that we have material actually comes from the spirit. Spirit actually comes initially before the material things. But if we're focusing on the material, we don't really see that. But I ask people to really ask yourself, what are you doing for your spiritual part, your aspect? What are you doing to feed yourself spiritually? Going back to what I talked about before. If we look in terms of our spirit, we look in terms of boundaries, in terms of adding value or adding deposits to ourselves, What are we doing to add positive deposits to our emotional self, to our spiritual self, to those boundaries? Are those individuals that we're interacting to, are they giving us positive reinforcement? Are they helping us through a challenge? Are they putting in love into us, right? Are they helping us, or are they tearing us down, right? Every time a person tears you down, then that's like a negative or like a withdrawal from your emotional well-being. And if you wake up throughout the day and let's say you got 10 people that's pulling you down, then a lot of times at the end of the day you're feeling exhausted, you're feeling tired, you're feeling beat up because your emotional well-being has basically been drained. But if you wake up and you notice, you got 10, 12 people, hey man, I'm proud of you, hey, good luck, I wish you the best, and you're having a positive self-talk within yourself, guess what's going to happen? You're going to feel really good. You're going to start to see your life change. You're going to start to see a lot of successful things start to happen for you, right? And you're going to notice that people are going to start respecting your boundaries. But I would implore you to make sure that you do what you need to do to take care of yourself first, because by you taking care of your mental health, what that's going to do is that's going to set like a particular barometer or a thermostat, if you will, as far as how high or how low or where you should go based on where you are. You can always do an internal assessment within yourself because you work through certain types of challenges and traumas within yourself, and you're being honest with yourself, and then you're able to deal with yourself in a healthy way. So when you're challenged with those things, you can say, you know what, back in the day I allowed this, but moving forward, I'm not going to allow this, right? And I want to kind of bring something up. When I was younger, I realized one of the challenges that I was working through was facing things with my mother, because my mother, very, very strong mother, she would be aggressive. And I realized when I was younger that I was really struggling with certain things with that. And in the relationships, I noticed that I would like kowtow when I was younger. And I realized that that was a trauma within myself that I had to work through. And I had to have certain boundaries. And some of the females, I had to let them know, yo, you know what? With all due respect, I had to cut it off. And it would make me feel guilty, make me feel sad in the beginning. But then I realized that me feeling guilty was because of a challenge or struggle that I had to overcome with my mother and heal that. And then once I worked through that, then I realized that if I don't stand up for myself, who will? Right? And so I ended up standing up for myself, and I had to relinquish a lot of relationships, but I ended up becoming more comfortable and confident within myself as a man. But I realized that that little Larry part of me, or the child aspect of myself, needed to heal. And why am I bringing that up? Because I think a lot of us as men struggle with that because of some challenges we may have had with our moms, our dads, relationships, wives, grandmothers, a lot of the women in our life. And we can't really blame them. We have to kind of take responsibility for our stake in it. There may have been some things where the women in our life may have treated us a certain kind of way because they were out of source, if you will, or they were dealing with a lot of negative deposits. And so if you're at a deficit, you can't teach a child how to be positive when you're at a deficit. And so as I matured as a man, I realized that, hey, you know what? There are certain things that my mom, she had struggles that she had to go through that I had to let it go, forgive her, say, okay, I realize it. There's some situations that she dealt with, someone I was a little kid, some before I was alive, that I realized that some of the trauma carried on. A lot of times we have that in our DNA. But as we work through that within ourselves, then we can have what we call compassion for ourselves as well as other people. And then we realize the importance of setting up boundaries, because it's just basically showing self-love for self. And when you love yourself, you don't have a problem with shutting people down on certain things, because you realize, you need time to think, you need time to process, you need time to take care of yourself. And if you don't do it, who else is going to do it for you? So I just want to put that out there for you guys. I want to say thank you for those individuals that reach out, those people that listen every week. Appreciate you. And let us know what you're thinking. What can we do to put out support for you guys for Men's Mental Health Month for May? What are some things that we could do to support you, right? Let us know some areas of boundaries that you might need support with, right? Let us know if there's some things that we've said has been beneficial, right? Reach out and let me know if there's some other things you'd like us to do as well. Okay. All right. So without further ado, we're going to have a live town hall on Chinatown and Industrial District Light Rail, May 29th. It's going to be live on Rainier Avenue Radio at 6 p.m. So make sure you guys take a look at that. Also, right after I'm done, Better Together and Living Powerfully will be the next guest. And that will be our friend, Dr. Why am I drawing a blank here? Dr. Tracy. Yes, Dr. Tracy. So make sure you guys take a look at her. She'll be coming on at in about a minute or so. So make sure you guys show her some love. You guys reach out. I want you guys to, show me some love and let me know what can we do to show more men's love out here, right? Chime in, reach out, let me know what we could do to respect our boundaries, to be more supportive of one another, and to support men's mental health. So without further ado, guys, I want to say deuces, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.